Welcome to the Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of the Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to the Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. Every one of us wants to feel happy. We want to be fulfilled. We don't want to have that feeling that there's something missing. So many of us have followed the rules of how life should be. We follow the rules on how we can be happy, but we can only find the rules that will take us in that direction by finding our rules. And if we can get quiet, if we can go into that space of loving kindness, and through meditation or through observation or through prayer, find our road, find our journey, we can open ourselves up to so much more. Be careful when you make that decision, when you start that journey, that you don't come from a place of, oh, now I know. Now I've learned everything that I need to learn, because the universe is constantly expanding. We're all growing and changing. So there's always something new for us to look at, another opportunity to take us to a new level, another opportunity for us to find and know more of ourselves so we can find and know more in others. I'm with Wendy Nash today. Wendy is a meditation coach at Kindly Cut the Crap. Wendy teaches entrepreneurs how to have introspection because her observation is whatever the CEO disowns is acted out at work. Wendy has a somatic psychotherapy diploma, a Bachelor of Psychology honors thesis on loving kindness meditation, and a 2-year diploma of mindfulness and compassion. She's been practicing loving kindness and other meditations for almost 20 years. If you think loving kindness meditation is only for the soft and weak, bring to mind someone who rejected you and wish them kindness and care. It's tough. Wendy Nash, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
Yeah, it's so interesting hearing the intro. Like I wrote that, and it's so like, is that me? Like, I remember kind of thinking when I was I'd go, wow, those people, and they've got this and that. And now I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm kind of sort of a little bit one of those people, not as much as them, but, oh, is that me? So before I go on, I really like to do two things. And firstly, the first one is to say thank you very much for having me on the show. I really, it's not only just about you and me sitting here. There's a whole gamut of people who are behind the scenes in the immediate, like you obviously you have a team, but also our partners, our families, our supporters, the communities, the people that we work with who inspire us, the people who are difficult who inspire us. And so I always like to say thank you to everybody who's contributed. And sometimes that's easy contribution, sometimes it's difficult contribution, but everybody's part of everything. And we can think that just one person makes no difference, but actually everybody brings something to the party. So I always like to open to say thank you very much for having me on the show, and also to the broader community for allowing this space to arise. And the other thing I like to do is to recognize that I'm Australian. I'm in Australia, I'm in Queensland, and I'm calling from Gubbi Gubbi country, which is, so there were about, 1,000 countries in Australia before whites got here. And they had all their own protocols and nations and languages and artistic endeavors. They also had a lot of knowledge about the land, the stars, the sense of interconnection for 70,000 years. So I think this is no small feat about how to think about what works in terms of land, country, where do we fit in the picture, community, and how to make us feel well. And I really feel that it's not until we recognize where we've come from that we can know where we are, that we can really say, this is where I want to go. Because I think it's really important, if you think 70,000 years doesn't sound like much, but Christianity is 2,000, and I follow Buddhism, that's 2.5. So that's like a drop in the ocean compared, and so much observation and paying attention to what worked and what didn't work in order to get to that level of knowledge. It's the oldest living continuous community on the planet, actually. So we're part of the old country, not the new, part of the old world, not the new world.
And it's all one world and all one energy. So we're all coming together for each and every one of us to live fully. And as I did research around your work, Wendy, so impressed on what you do and how you reach out to people and how you're making a difference in the world. Could you share a little bit more with the imagination so they know more about what you're doing right now in the world?
So I went, like, what do I do? What do I do? What am I doing? Like, it's always a question, what do I actually do? And of course, with every person, it's different. I'm sort of, with some people, it's more sort of emotional support. Some people, it's more, I don't know, intellectual or other support, spiritual support. But my thing is really, I spent 30 years in organizations, different countries. And I really noticed that people, we all have blind spots, and it's our blind spots that are kind of what makes our lives difficult. Because if we don't own that which feels outside our repertoire, then we cause problems. So I'll give you an example. This is actually, so I've just got a new social media person, and I put something up on one of the freelancer websites, and I said, I'm looking for a social media person. And this fellow, he wrote a really good profile, and he sent a little voicemail message. Now, I didn't have time to listen to the voicemail message before I said, okay, let's, do a little bit more research, and here's what I'm looking for, XYZ. And then I listened to the voicemail message, and I thought, oh, he's really pushy. I do not like this guy at all. And I replied back and I said, thank you very much for your thoughtfulness, and but I'm going to decline, and this is why. So I feel that, where I'm working is a very meditative space. It's very, it's about attending to other people, and your energy is actually quite forthcoming and actually a little bit pushy. So for me, when I decline somebody who's come forward, I like to give them specific reasons so then they can take it away and work with it. And then he wrote back, and then I got a message saying, okay, I'm ready to meet. I said, oh, this is surprising. I wrote back. I said, this is surprising because I've actually declined your offer. I wonder if you got the message. And he said, yeah, I got the message, but I know I can fix your problems. And now his blind spot is not listening. I'm not going to hire someone who does that because I want someone who listens. So it's really working with that kind of energy so that when people start their business, or they head up a family, or they're part of anything, to really engage with a part of us that maybe is a bit painful. We don't want to see that we're lacking, and so we try and hide it by being the capable one, or we try and hide it by being the one who helps others, who's kind of a bit of a martyr, or we try and kind of be very clever and intellectual. So these are just generally ways of doing it. So I try and bring a very compassionate, as I was saying to some people on the weekend, I said, my work is really to listen and to hear with compassion and care and love what is going on for the person so they can move beyond their blind spot. And then once I've given them sort of tools and everything, that then really helps them develop their meditation practice. So I teach loving kindness meditation mostly, but really, I don't care if somebody has their own app, or I'm not really interested in having my own type of meditation. I actually use John McCransky's Awakening Through Love, which is the best practice book out. And my focus is just making sure that they are able to listen to themselves, which this gentleman wasn't able to do, the marketing guy. So he could listen to others, so he could have heard me. So that's my take. And the thing I like about meditation is that I'm really trying to give people resources so they're not dependent on me. I want them to kind of go, okay, you can do this anywhere, anytime. And with any problem you've got in your personal life, in your business life, and existential pain that we all have, none of us has got to this age without something.
So let me ask you this, Wendy, as would you say 30 years in organizations, what was the trigger? What was the wake up that made you decide, okay, I'm going to start, because obviously you were meditating while you were at those organizations. What was the thing that got your attention and said, okay, Wendy, it's time for you to go out and share this with people. It's time to step out of the organizations?
Actually, the organization stepped out of me. So it was more that I got to my 50s and I couldn't do that job anymore. I was going for interviews. I wasn't getting it. And somebody turned around and said, maybe the universe is telling you something. So I had to listen actually to her, and I just thought, yeah, this is really true. I hate that job. So I had to stop trying to do something. And it was very painful. Like, I'm not saying, I basically had to think, all right, what am I going to do for work? Because am I going to be on unemployment benefits? We have Social Security here. Am I going to be on unemployment benefits until I die? I had to sort of think about that. Luckily, I have a really good friend, and he said, I want you to teach me about burnout. He could see I was kind of spiraling down into some vortex of, I think really most of our existential angst is about not feeling like we have a dignified life. We're selling ourselves somewhere, either because we don't have financial means, or we don't feel like we're living the life we kind of want. This is your big thing. But this morning I was thinking it's all about dignity. So even that social media fellow, what he's really seeking is social acceptance and dignity, but all his strategy is off because he's not listening. So I just basically got to a crash and burn, one of the many in my life. And so by then I was I just go, okay, well, if somebody says, try this, I'll do it. I was so desperate by that stage anyway. I was just going to do it. So, and he's so lovely. And then a couple of people asked me for help with meditation. And I started off in wellbeing, burnout. And then that wasn't really working. So I pivoted, and a couple of people, acquaintances, approached me for meditation guidance. And then I just kept going down that road. And then it's like, because I was well with who I am, or who I was really not giving this anxious, desperate vibe to getting business. I see a lot of the marketing stuff and a lot of the stuff on LinkedIn and everything. It's really, I can make your millions. And as far as I can see, most of the people, and I don't mean to be, but most of the people who make money as life coaches, and this clearly isn't your thing, but are people who are just getting other coaches to give them work. I'm not sure how much work they do. You have much more integrity than that. But that's what it seems that is a big part of that. So it's about our desperation and our sense of lack of dignity, and we're fighting all the time internally in that way. So I'm hoping I answered the question.
You certainly did. And what I've found is that we get to this place where we know that there's got to be more. And when we say when I say more, I mean, we get to this place where we feel like we've got something to give and that people need. And unfortunately, we kind of fall back into, I think, what you were sharing with us earlier. We live by these certain set of rules. And all we did in many cases was step from one set of rules into another, because how can I help people? Well, I can help people by teaching them something, or I can help them by being their coach. And that's the new set of rules. So many people do step into that coaching role thinking that that's the only way that they're going to make a difference in. And we're so wrong by that, because we've got so many people with so many different gifts and talents that other people need. But we do fall into what you were calling blind spots. And I think those blind spots are almost archetypal, aren't they?
Well, we've all got them. The more willing we are to be wrong, the better it is. So I used to be really self-righteous and uptight, and I was always right, you know. And I came from a family which was very opinionated. You know, my mother's side of the family, but probably my father's too. My father died as a child, but my mother's side of the family, they're very highfalutin British family, English family, thinking they're sort of a bit God's gift to the universe, really. And I was following all the rules, and I was still not happy, actually. I was just not happy, but I was following the rules that they told me I had to be. And then, like so many people, I married, and then my ex-husband left, and it was completely the right thing. He's a lovely man. He's a lovely, kind man. I should never have married him, because I was wanting a good husband and a good father. I wasn't wanting him. So, and I think a lot of women fall into that trap. The biology kind of kicks in. He left, and I just went, well, haven't I made a huge mess of this? Whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm wrong. And so I want to start with this question, and I do this with hosts because I think it's a really interesting way of investigating. So if you're willing to kind of go along with me for a quick sec.
Sure.
Yeah. So what is your favorite big thing in the world? Like sometimes people talk about jazz music, or sometimes they talk about, I don't know, shells, or I don't know. What is your huge, great, big passion that you have?
Well, Imagine Miracles is one of my big passions, but let's go with flying.
Flying. All right. So you're talking about flying airplanes?
Flying airplanes. I just retired about a year ago from a major airline. I retired early, and I'm really missing it. So let's go with flying.
Okay, flying. So you've been flying jet engines all over the world, or just in the US, or?
All over the world.
All over the world. I've probably been on one of your planes. There you go. I've done a lot. I'm Australian. We travel everywhere. You will know this. So you know a lot about flying. And if you think about all the flying that happens all over the world, everything to do with aviation of jets and passengers and the whole kit and caboodle, as a percentage of all the knowledge that is everything there, how much would you say you could irrefutably 100% say, someone came and asked you a question, I know 100% without a doubt, this is the correct answer, of all the knowledge about jet flying?
All the knowledge about all airplanes, probably about 35%.
Right. Okay. So you're talking, so that's across different countries. So Greece, of course, has some interesting airline things, Aeroflot, all these very unusual companies that don't have the same safety standards as certainly Australian and other international flyers. So you've got 30%, you said 35, I think, didn't you? Yeah. That somebody came to you, you would absolutely know all the mechanics, all the accidents, all the errors, all the people who work on it, all the airline companies, all the airports, all the company organizations and their strategies about how to fly a plane. You would say you're at 35%.
Still around 35%, yeah.
Okay, so you'd have a good guess for how much? Like you'd have a pretty good hunch. Somebody said, okay, this is what it is. I reckon this is what it'll be. How much would you say?
You mean add on if it was just
Yep.
just a hunch?
Yeah.
Oh, probably another 40% hunch wise.
Okay. So 70% chance you're actually going to be on the money, pretty much likely. That means that 30% of the time, actually, you're going to be wrong. There's a really good chance you're clueless. And it's really interesting to kind of, so for me, I thought I knew everything. And then I went, well, how much can I be 100% sure about? And I'm going, I'm really interested in Buddhism. And I'm going to 1%, maybe 1%. And then, okay, good hunch for 20%. Okay, so I'm like going to be wrong 80% of the time. I'm clueless. And it made me learn to be so much more humble. And so it was very interesting. So even though we think we are going to be right, actually, there's a really good chance we could be wrong. So I think that's what happened to me.
So you brought up something very interesting, and I think you're the perfect person to talk about this. I haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. So if we're looking at, there's 80% chance that we're going to be wrong, and 20% that we're going to be right. When we come down to it, though, there are very few facts in the universe, very few facts. And you can increase the numbers saying that there's truths that aren't necessarily facts, but they're still truths. So talk to me about how you feel, especially with your connection that you get through loving kindness meditations, tapping into your guides. How do you feel about people having truths and accepting other people's truths about the same things?
I guess the first one is, who says, like, why can't both be true? I guess personally, and perhaps I'm contentious, my younger sister was born with a terminal illness, and it was 18 months, and I was a toddler. And this is the 60s, and there was no support. And my mother, like, I just think it was so painful in my family that for somebody to say, and also my father died of a terminal illness, and for somebody to say, you shouldn't, what do you call it, euthanasia is wrong. I go, actually, you don't know my circumstances for saying that, my thinking. And I think it behoves us to really listen better. And I'll give some. So it so happens that we had our federal election in March. And in that, the week before the federal election, everybody voting in Australia is compulsory. That's kind of why you get a democracy. When everybody votes, then you get a democracy. So I'm very strong about compulsory voting because I think it's fantastic. Everyone votes, everyone gets a say. And the week beforehand, we drove from New South Wales to Brisbane, to Queensland, and our van broke down just the week before the election. So we were in this tin pot town, and I didn't know anyone, he didn't know anyone, my partner didn't know anyone, and we had a few days to kill because the van needed repair. And I just asked the tow truck driver, so, we've got an election, so who do you think will get in this weekend? And he said, and then if you had a magic wand and any party person that you wanted to get in got in, who would that be? Do you think climate change is real? And what is the main sticking point for climate change? So they were contentious questions, very provocative. So that is a kind of what you're saying. And, I'm trained as a psychotherapist. So I'm quite good at listening to people's emotional needs. And one of the questions that I think makes somebody a really good listener. I only learned this last year. It was the absolute key to the door for being able to understand in those controversial things about pro-choice, pro-life. It's what I hear you care about is the well-being of society. What I hear you care about is people's well-being. What I hear you care about is, so in the pro-life, pro-choice thing, that really that harm to people is not going to take place. Unnecessary harm is not going to take place. And we have different ideas about that. So there are about 20 people that I asked those questions to, and some were them very different politically from the political spectrum from me. What I also thought was really interesting is there were two people who said, I don't believe in climate change. And I said, well, what's the key issue about believing in climate change, that it's real? And then they said, oh yeah, actually there is a lot of property development and it is really bad how the rain is really bad in areas. So what that said is people identify with an ideology, but their wiser self knows something true is here.
That's very, very powerful. And thank you for answering the way you did, because I do think it's important to, one, understand that other people have their truths, and their truth is just as real to them as it is to you. So we have to accept that and realize that their truth isn't necessarily right or wrong, and our truth is not necessarily right or wrong. It's right for the individual at the time and where they are. But I love the fact that you said, if we look for the underlying foundation of the truth, we're more on the same page than we would ever believe. So thank you so much for answering that way.
So I just answer that. So what I found is, even on the very far right, very far left, what I found is everybody wanted a good society that was good for all. That was what just blew me away, and that just shifted the game completely. So
well, yeah, just could you share with us what the loving kindness meditation is and how people can use it?
Okay, so Sharon Salzberg is a very famous Buddhist, and she does this one, which is to recite certain phrases. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be at peace. May you be well, may you be happy, be at peace. And then you do it for a stranger and a difficult person and the whole of society. I take a different approach, not to deny that approach is really good, but I couldn't click into that. What works for me is to find ways that people are automatically kind with you that you're not paying attention to. So this is what, as Mr. Rogers, I think you have somebody in your history. Yeah, we didn't have Mr. Rogers here, but I know that Americans love Mr. Rogers. And he was in an interview with Charlie Rice, I think that's his name, in the 1970s. And he says, it's not about doing for other people. It's about receiving gracefully. So if you think about, so when I opened this program, I was like, well, thank you very much for everybody who was part of this, who was contributing. So if you think about even something like your partner goes to the grocery store and sees something and goes, oh, I know, Vince will really like this for dinner. I'll get that for him. I'm thinking of what's going to make him happy. And then I'll cook it later, and he will be really happy with that. Now we can sort of go, oh yeah, I was down at the supermarket and I got a couple of things and here you go. And you can dismiss that. But actually that person has been really thoughtful about you. And so there's tons of things during the day, and somebody smiles at you, just to register the smile. Whether somebody, your cat or your dog comes to you and sort of, sits on your lap, or somebody says thank you in an email, or somebody messages something from their Facebook and says, oh, I saw this. I thought this would be just your thing. Are you interested? These are small little gestures for saying, I want you to be well. I want you to feel fulfilled. Tiny, tiny. We can easily dismiss it, but it's right there.
It's so powerful when we come from that place of giving and serving, because that's truly when we receive, is when we give and serve from the heart, and serve from a place of actually seeing someone. And I think that's what it made me feel as you were sharing that. People, when they're seen, they're they're willing to open their hearts and willing to shine out, and that's so powerful in the world.
So I know we're at time. I know we're at time. Sorry about this. I just want to say, actually, what the thing is that you are receiving them. It's not about you giving. It's actually how well are you receiving? How well are you listening to their world? That's the deal. That's the important part.
Share a parting piece of guidance with the imagination that you want everybody to take away from our time together.
I think really just open up to how wrong you are. I think that's the deal. Learn to listen to better. Just ask, what does this person actually care about when they're asking, when they're speaking, and really pay attention to that. And then just be willing to be wrong. That's it.
80% of the time. That's going to be a topic of conversation at Imagine Miracles over the next couple of days. It was such a great share. Could you tell people how they can get in touch with you, Wendy, and where they can find more about you?
Yeah, so my website is Kindly Cut the Crap, because you've really got to get rid of every bit of excess, but you've really got to do it with kindness. So that's why the kindlycutthecrap.com. That's the best way to get hold of me. I don't have 100,000 million social media things. I should. That's why I've got a new social media person. And I've got some recorded meditations on loving kindness there. They're not the super best ones, but they're a good place to start, and really just meditate. It doesn't matter. Start small.
Well, thank you for your generosity. I'll make sure all of that information is available. Just go to Wendy's show page at the miracleu.com. Look for Wendy Nash's page. All that information will be available to you. Wendy, thank you so much for shining your light in the world, joining us today, and sharing your loving kindness with the imagination.
I used to be a very bitter person, very bitter and hard. So it's so nice to have changed that and transformed that. So thank you, Vince, for letting me share that experience.
And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I have the opportunity to be watching and seeing Wendy's smiling and loving face. So definitely not a bitter person, and we appreciate the change that you're bringing to the world.
It's my pleasure, Vince. Thanks.
On behalf of my wife, Mary, who's also my business partner, the entire team here at Imagine Miracles, we want to wish each and every one of you a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 Mind Awakening Steps Toward Your Unique Purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleu.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.